we are again, gathered, a whole bunch of like-minded folks here at the 65th Annual Ford Boat Sport and Travel Show. We're in the Travel Cafe, we're in the Champions Pavilion, and we're having a great afternoon talking to so many just outstanding, whether they're pro, whether they're doing seminars, fishing and hunting. We've had a whole diverse day. We've been to Canada, how you do a Canada trip. We've been to South Africa. We've had so much fun. Let's bring it back to what this show is all about, and that's fishing and hunting and travel and destinations. We've had so many great pros with us over this last 2 weekends. Russ Bailey, you're right at the top.
How we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great now that you're here. Addicted to crappie. What in the world? You guys are brush pile. You've got a huge booth over there. You're like a walking around crappie legend.
Brush pile fishing is our television show, and we've taken the show on the road. Of course, we bring our booth to all these, shows like this, and all the things that you see in our show that we use: the B&M poles, the bonehead, the Jenko, the mustad. Everything that we use is available at our booth, because we know fishermen, when they see that product works, they want to have it, so we make it available for them.
So let's talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
We're here on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. You do an awful lot on social media as you've captured a bigger audience. How important is the social media side of what you do?
You know what, it's everything nowadays. And I am actually behind the curve on a lot of this, but we have IT people that can do it all. And I can remember when a website was a big thing. And now websites
and a fax machine.
Yeah, I still have one.
Yeah.
But social media, it seems like everybody wants that information, what's going on, but they want it, what's going on right now. And there's no better way to do that than to social media.
Well, you're a Midwestern native. You live just across in Ohio in St. Mary's. You're a big Reds fan, I know that.
Yes, sir.
Big
Love baseball.
You got a baseball cave, don't you?
I do. In our basement, me and my son, we've put together a baseball man cave, and it's pretty cool.
What's in there? Any memorabilia?
We got tons of memorabilia. One of the coolest things I actually picked up last year, Scooter Gennett for the Reds. He had a 4 home run game, and we've got a seat when they redid the stadium there, a seat number 4 with his photo on it. Got the date of the home runs, and he signed it. It's pretty cool.
So you're 11-time national champ.
No, I went to 14 national
14 national qualifier, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does it ever get old?
You know what? The tournament fishing, I actually gave up a while because the travel was getting to me. So I started a guide service, did away with the travel, and then we started a television show. I travel more now than I ever did. But the thing is, when I'm doing these shows, I think what sets our show apart from others is we've always got a guest on the show. There's so many ways to crappie fish. And I've made friends with some of the best pros across the country. So now we're bringing you a different technique every week. And the thing that keeps it great for me is every time I do a show, I'm still learning things after all this time for crappie fishing. And the way I look at it, if you're my guest that week, that's your half-hour show. I'm basically a narrative, just bringing it to the people.
So your show's on the Pursuit channel, and it's bigger and more popular than ever. But I think that goes along with crappie fishing in general. I think it's bigger and more popular than it's ever been. And there's such a great community of people like you that are teachers, bringing you new techniques, and it's easy to do. It's accessible, I should say.
You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. A cane pole, even if all you can get is that cane pole and a jig, that's all you need. And like you said, there are so many crappie anglers in the country, not necessarily tournament pros or whatever, but guys that they've got the weekend off. Those crappie are in shallow, especially in the spring, and they just want to go out and fish for the weekend.
So you guys have got your own language sometimes in crappie fishing. What's shooting a dock?
All right, that's my favorite technique. And when we talk about shooting, I've got a 6-foot rod, and you actually grab the jig, you pull it back, and it's like, if you could picture this, it's like a bow and arrow. And we're shooting because we want to get back under these pontoons or back under the docks. We want to get in that darkest water we can find, and that's the easiest way to do it. I'll pull into a bay, and if I see somebody, they're flipping maybe 2-3 foot under a dock or whatever, and they keep moving on, I'll give them their time, come right behind them, because they're missing a lot of productive water.
Shade, right? They're looking for the shade.
Yes, sir.
So there's all sorts of new products, and I know you've got your own signature series rod, and I think you're coming out with a new one, aren't you?
It's actually already out through B&M. I've come out with an 8-foot signature series. It's a new type of graphite. The one thing that I designed is for not only vertical jigging, but flipping, and you can pinpoint where you want to go. And we put all stainless steel eyelets on there so you can fish in the rain. It doesn't affect, how the line comes off. We're super excited about it.
How do you guys keep a show, keep these products fresh?
There's always guys experimenting, or these companies experimenting with what would make it a little bit better. And we were talking today, sometimes it's getting back to the basics too. I can remember when I started crappie fishing, tube jigs. It was tube jigs. You don't even hear about those anymore. I love going out with an old tube jig every once in a while, just to see that they still work.
So your show is very popular, a lot of Facebook, YouTube following. You've got great sponsors behind you. Have you ever thought about expanding and going into different areas to fish, maybe that you haven't been so accustomed to doing?
You know what? Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because we're already taping for next year's series, and I can let the folks know we're going to Minnesota, we're going to Virginia, we're going to Lake Erie. We're going to hit some spots we've never hit before, so we're pretty stoked about that.
They don't have any crappie in Minnesota, do they?
Rainy Lake. I'm going to find out. I've watched a few YouTube videos, and and again, this is what keeps it good for me. I'm pumped. I cannot wait to get up there. So Kerr Lake in Virginia, I've read about it all the time, but for whatever reason, we've never made it there. Well, guess what? We're going this year.
Probably not as many snakes. I know you love snakes.
Now, how'd you hear that?
That's my job.
Anybody that has watched our show or watched our YouTube stuff, they know I don't like snakes. And to me, that's about 7 or 8 foot when it comes to the snakes. So I'm gone, man.
It's funny that you should have this chat, because we were talking just a few minutes ago about how we all hated snakes. And you know who's over at the DNR booth today? The snakes. Snakes alive.
Guess where I won't be visiting.
And they said, do you want to interview the snake? And I'm like, no. I interviewed Twiggy the water skiing squirrel yesterday, so they felt like now I've mastered the technique of evidently interviewing furry critters and reptiles. Why do you continue to do what you do?
It's what I talked about earlier. Every time I go out and do a show, I still learn something. The people that in crappie fishing, the guys that come into our booth and stuff, it's awesome. A lot of them come in year after year. And the other thing is, when I used to fish tournaments, I was very competitive. I was there to win. The friendship was out for 8 hours. Now, we'll talk after. But, when I quit tournament fishing, I lost that competitive edge. And when I started guiding, it just was pretty neat to see guys come out that didn't have a lot of confidence in that morning. They catch fish, and by the afternoon, they've got their chests out. I love bringing new techniques to people and helping them learn different ways to catch them.
Crappie USA has always been a great organization, family friendly, and I think that's what draws a lot of new fishermen into crappie fishing, because they've got a great organization like Crappie USA that always does stuff for kids.
You bet.
And that makes it a lot easier when you don't need a lot of fancy stuff.
Yeah, and like you say, that at each tournament they go to, they have a kids tournament on that Saturday morning. And then, if you're just starting out tournament fishing, they've got a pro division and what they call, an amateur division. So, you don't have to worry about competing against some of the best ones that do it year round.
What's the thump?
That's the old crappie logo again. It's something, and you've got to experience. The first time you go crappie fishing, you've got that jig on and you're working a brush pile or working a dock, and first time they hit that, that's the thump, man, and it. It's like, that's what Russ is talking about.
So electronics in boats and other things, all changed, all better. We've talked a lot in the last two weekends with people about electronics. Are you a fan?
I am, and I'll tell you what, it makes such a difference in finding fish now. Now, you still have to catch them, but even me, like if I pull into a cove and there's 15 pontoons in a row that are docked there, okay, I can now drive by them real slow, and I will actually see which ones have fish under them. I'll see where they're suspended at. It takes all that guesswork out. It's a lot of wasted time I would have did before trying to figure all that out. Now I know, I set my cork or whatever, and I'm ready to fish.
You know, we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of folks. Some are adopters and some aren't.
Yep.
And I've heard so many things about electronics in the last week and a half that we've been doing this show. It amazes me the technology that you can put on your boat relatively inexpensively.
You know what? When they first come out, some of the newer stuff, of course, it was pretty expensive. They've come down in price. And even the lower price ones, when I say, you know, they're super, you can drop a jig down and you'll see that jig on that screen coming down. You'll see a fish come up and hit it.
And you know, talk about young people adopting technology. It's a perfect match for bringing, hopefully, a lot of younger kids into boats.
You know what? You get a middle-aged kid there, he'll learn that technology on your depth finder faster than we will.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the one thing. I don't think we ever reach our potential on the new units, people our age.
Yeah.
But those kids, Dad, no, do this. Let me tune that, Dad. So, yeah, absolutely.
One of the beautiful things about doing a Facebook Live or YouTube Live is we have an opportunity, some people have asked some questions of you. Jacob writes, what's the biggest crappie you've ever caught and how much money was it worth?
Well, it wasn't in a tournament, so money-wise, it wasn't worth anything, but to me, it was great.
I just read the questions.
I've actually caught 2 3-pounders down in Mississippi, which were white crappie, but the one that meant the most to me, we were fishing in Decatur, Illinois, okay? I caught a 3-pounder from 40 foot down, and it was a black crappie, and that's pretty rare. It was actually 301, so that's the best.
I think if I caught a 3-pound crappie, I would, well, I'd probably scare me to death.
You know, when I remember,
like catching a 10-pound bass.
You got it. This was years ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. But I remember we caught a big white bass first, and when I hit that one, I thought it was another white bass. It was clear water, so when he got about 4 foot from the surface, his mouth popped open. I saw what it was, and then it was like, oh my gosh, get it in. But I said, you know, when I got it in, I shook.
Yeah.
It's like, because the nerves hit you then, it's like, oh my God, I got him, you know.
So now that you've quit the tournament fishing and you're doing your guiding and you're having a great time on your Brush Pile TV, what's next? What's left? What do you want to do? Who do you want to fish with?
You know what? I still would like to do a show with my son. His baseball schedule, it's kind of tough, but you know, I've got to fish with some of the best anglers in the country, and the thing about it, we're all friends. We're great friendships were developed, so I just want to keep this brush pile fishing going.
Well, you're doing a good job of it.
Thank you.
Russ Bailey with us today here in the Travel Cafe. This is Indy Sports Show Live. We're having a lot of fun. You're not going to want to go anywhere because we got so much left to do for the rest of the day. I'm Brian Pointer, your host. We're going to be back real soon.